Welcome, welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. We have already started recording. I hope you've had a great Tuesday. This is our second office hour, and we're going to go ahead on and get started. If you have any questions regarding the whole process, if you have any questions regarding any of the forms, this is the opportunity that we want to open up to you and to hear your questions. We had some really good questions this morning that helped us get some um, just some clarity on some things and some items. But hopefully the recording was helpful and you're able to go back and review. What I did not mention on the first one is make sure that when you do go through the recording that you register to enter, and then you have to sign out at the end, verifying that you actually watch the entire recording because it is the closeout of a federal funded grant, and we want to make sure that we have our documentation to support that every subgrantee had their program director to attend. It has to be the program director because that is the actual person that is the operation and liaison between the LEA as well as the state. And so just want to make sure everybody understands that. So with that being said, do we have any questions right off or not? I'm just going to dive in and talk a little bit about some of the things that were addressed this morning to see if maybe that would better help you with your process of closing out cohort 16. This is only for close out cohort 16. Any questions just right off the bat? All right. If you have any questions, maybe I'll just kind of go peruse through a couple of forms and maybe some things that just pop to your mind as we're talking, and that would be helpful for you. So I'm going to go ahead on and share my screen.
Looks like we have a question in the chat box.
Okay.
Um, Based on the video, is equipment considered technology?
It just depends upon, but yes, it's equipment. Equipment is technology. If you're asking because you want to know whether or not to list it on the inventory form, yes, you would list it as equipment. Alrighty. So let's just jump right into it. You all know that there is a narrative that is supposed to be sent to your assigned Alabama State Department of Education specialist, your ALSDE specialist. And these are the questions that are required that you sign out on, has to have a signature at the end. But I just wanted to make sure that you all have clarity on understanding what your options are when you are addressing the information in the narrative. So the very first one, I think, is we just want to make sure that we have really good information about where you're going to be storing your records, your reports and all that. But just look at number two. Remember, number two has options, and within those options, you select what is best for you. One of the things that we talked about this morning was the fact that we know that cohort 26 as well as summer cohort 25 announcement has not been made yet. And so if you need to get your narrative in before you know the announcement of that date, we're asking that if you choose, let's say, option one, which says that you are going to be a newly awarded 21st century subgrantee, and you put the site there, but that's based off of what you're hoping. But in case that is your option for what you're going to do with the equipment that you have purchased with cohort 16, you need to have another choice just in case you're not selected. And so when you select option one, you're going to say that if not awarded, then what would be your next option? Would it be to have another out of school time and the equipment would stay there? Is it to go to another 21st century site because you have a 21st century site in your district that's with cohort 16, which means if you have a cohort 17, those that equipment at cohort 16. If that cohort 17 is within your district, then you're going to move or transfer that equipment to the cohort 17 um, site. So just go ahead and have that in mind just in case. I did receive one today, and that's exactly what they did. So if you choose option one, everybody understands that there is an or within there that is saying that there's another option within one. And then if option one is your choice, then that means A should be how you're going to handle the equipment. So if option one is your choice, then you know to make sure that A matches with option one and there's an or inside of that option as well. So just pay attention to the wording. There's no need to reinvent it. We tried to make it as simple as possible and just copy and paste for you as you're doing your narrative. When you get into the flow, just go on down to number three, just as it states, and anything that's in parentheses or that has uh, bolded information, that's for you to put in information, not to actually copy and paste the same wording. So if I see 21st century, if I see 21st CCLC site name, that means that you put your 21st CCLC site's name in there if you're following within option A. So option one, excuse me, and number A. So if it was Alvis 21st Century site has been awarded under the 21st Century Grant. But if I don't know I haven't been awarded, I'm going to say, however, if not awarded, we will go back to option one, have a non-21st century out of school time program, um, and we're going to retain the 21st century funds. And then that or in A should say Alvis 21st century site will continue an out of school time program that's going to be funded through, let's just say if it was Title One funds or if it was local funds, that kind of a thing. We have to know the funding source. So just, keep that in mind if you do not know whether or not you've been awarded, how you can move forward in your narrative. We don't want that to hold you back from that choice. Are there any questions concerning this particular form or the narrative, I should say? Okay, great. Um, let's just look at the closeout form itself. There were some really good questions when it came to the closeout form that I'll just kind of share with you, and maybe you want to add additional, information or give us or ask us some questions. So, for instance, one of the questions was right here where it says date of fiscal closeout. That's the FER process that is completed through GAP. I'm sorry, EGAP. So, what we're meaning is the grant ends September the 30th, right? And so if you know that the grant ends on September the 30th and you are done asking for reimbursements, you know that there are no receipts out there and you're ready to, you don't have any ES2s that need to be requested, then you're ready to go ahead and close out the actual cohort 16 grant because any request for reimbursements will not be um, honored because you're saying that you're done. So just be very careful that when you get ready to go through that process, that you have made sure that all of your receipts, your equipment or anything of any purchases, books, whatever you've made that was before September 30th has been received before you go through your EGAP process. So that is going to be a projected date. That doesn't mean you're going to stick to it, but it's going to be projected. So if you know that the grant ends on September the 30th, then my FER process may have a date after September the 30th, but we have to have a projected date. However, when you go to the area that says the deadline date for all expenses, that's what I was referencing to. We all know that you cannot request um, reimbursements on any purchases that were after September the 30th. We want to make sure that you remember that. So that's why it's highlighted in yellow. So it says, has all expense reports been turned in? And if the funds have been spent, all of the funds that you have requested has been spent, you're going to say yes. if you know that all of your ES2s are not completed and you have not gotten all your um, reimbursements, you're going to say no. And then give us an ideal time of when you think all of that is going to be submitted. So this is a proposed process. We're trying to get you to get a timeline on getting all of your expenditures taken care of so that you can close out your cohort 16 in a clear and great way of closing out this cohort without having any bumps. So this is what this process is. Um, right here, there was a good question about the all GEPRA and easy reports. Well, before I get to that, someone came up with a really good question this morning regarding like the ES2s and everything, and they were like, well, in the event that we decide that we didn't get the grant and we do not have any plans on having any type of out of school program at that site, it may be more challenging for us to keep the grant after the summer 2 additional months. What can I do? And so my response was that contact your assigned ALSDE, have a conversation with that. But if that is the case, it would need to be put in writing saying that you're going to end the grant before the deadline of the grant because the grant was written to end on September the 30th, 2025. And so that's one of the reasons why Amanda changed the date so that it wouldn't end in an odd place for families who are relying on the grant to have somewhere for their student or child to go after school, and it won't be such a big disruption. So, if that's going to be the case for you, we're just asking that you communicate through email and give us a call or the phone so that we can guide you through that process. If you feel like you're not going to be, or if it is announced that you're not awarded the grant and you're not going to have another out of school um, time program at that site that has been implementing a 21st century grant, then we want to talk you through it because you still have to go through the FER process. We still have to make sure all the other things are taken care of, but we just want to know that information. Any questions about that part before I jump into the easy reports in GEPRA? All right, so let's talk a
The
little bit.
follow-up, hold
Oh,
on, it
okay.
was a follow-up. I'm asking because at one point it said you couldn't buy equipment in year three. I know we can't buy technology in year three. So I just wanted to make sure that the definition of equipment was only technology or technology plus other items.
It's equipment and technology. So technology is considered equipment. I guess we should have been a little bit more clear on that, but that's what that is. And we all know year three, none of those things were supposed to be purchased, but if it was purchased, we just need to know so that we can have it on record that it was purchased. Okay. All right. So the GEPRA and EASY reports, there are certain things that have to be done in order to close out even if you're having a summer program, you have to make sure that surveys have been completed if that's the case. If you have classes that needed to be set up to have your attendance, all of that needs to be taken care of in a timely manner so that it is reported because that's where we get our data to report to the federal department, just letting them know how our funds are being used and who's being served. If you notice, once again, we would like to know a proposed date. It says date. When do you expect for all of that to be completed? So you got to keep in mind that you do have a summer program. If you have a summer program, then it needs to be completed by the end of that summer program. If you don't have a summer program, then you might be able to have it completed at the beginning part of June of some sort. But the bottom line is making sure that you complete all those different parts of the GEPRA as well as easy reports when it comes to surveys and all of that. And we want to know who is doing this, who is your data person, who is collecting this information, and we would like a good phone number in the event that something occurs. We all know that, people change jobs or program shift or whatever the case may be. And when we have any questions about what has been submitted, the program director may not necessarily know how to answer some of those questions. So therefore, we would like to know the name of the person, the projected date of when you expect all of those items to be completed, and the phone number. Erica, was there anything that I missed in regards to Easy Reports and GEPRA that we want to make sure that is completed as part of a closeout process?
I think I just said earlier today, everything that we just did. So think about that whole process. So making sure that whoever at the school has flagged your students in Power School, not just asking them on September 25th, but going ahead and asking them before the end of the school year for the school year students, and then go ahead and ask them. And we'll send reminders of this. Go ahead and ask them like in the first 2 weeks of summer camp to flag your summer students, going ahead and doing your summer surveys for your students, going ahead and making sure all of your school year stuff is wrapped up. Not asking for you to do it for the 25-26 school year, but making sure that everything in 24-25 school year is wrapped up. Surveys, GEPR data, students flagged, justifications of missing data, because at this point, you know if a student has left your program, go ahead and start putting those justifications in Easy Report to say, hey, this student left our district, so we no longer have access, or make sure that they are flagged previous, but they were flagged previously, and you don't have to add a justification. But making sure that you've done all of that, making sure that the final report is completed correctly, making sure your external evaluator has done all of their reports, all of you turn in all of your things, and that they've done all of their visits and all of that, because we have some issues. Just we want to make sure that you completely close up cohort 16 on the easy report and 21 APR part, because that data has to be turned into the federal government. So we want to make sure it's as accurate as possible.
And you just reminded me of something that someone brought up at the last meeting this morning, which is an external evaluator. When you issue that payment, you know that it has to be done by September the 30th. And so you want to make sure that you get all of that information done in a timely manner. So this form is really like a guide of looking at some projected dates, making sure that everything is done. And what we do at the state level is once this information is turned in to your TA through email or at your site visit, the very bottom is when we're going to say when we received it from the TA, and we sign off on it, because it's going to be the cover sheet for all of the information that was submitted to the TA and then brought to the state level. But we also use this form to go back in here. So when we go into the fall and we began to look at funds left over and we began to look at, did everybody complete their FER process? We go in and look to see, did you follow up with what you said you were going to do? Are you anywhere near those months in which you said you would have everything completed? That has a impact on, being able to be awarded additional funds, even awarded funds right now. That can change if this is really, really off. So just kind of keep it in mind as you're going through your process that these dates are very serious and as far as meeting those deadlines. Any other questions about this form? Okay, let's talk a little bit about the equipment transfer form. I hope you understood from the recording that everyone should complete one. If you're not transferring anything, then that's what you need to say. But all of these forms must be completed with information, whether you're using it or you're not. But one of the things we just want to make sure that you understand is that you're going to make sure that if it's you or someone you're assigned to, has communicated to the receiving school that, look, we don't have another 21st century in our district, or we do have another 21st century in our district, and you are um, the receiving school of it by law, and we want to prep you and let you know in a early enough time that this equipment is coming, how much is going to be coming. You may even want to let them see copies of this before you actually um, bring it to them. And I used the example earlier was that as a building principal, this time of the year is really, really taxing and a little bit nerve-wracking because you're concentrating on, closing down the school year, prepping the school if you have any programs going on, if you have PD that's going to be provided to your staff, trying to get the building clean and set up for if you have a summer program going on, or even if you're just trying to prep because the district has decided to use your school site to do some PD, whatever the case may be. There's a lot going on between now summer programming and the school starting up. And so to add this to the plate, give that site that you're going to be transferring equipment to enough time to get their mind wrapped around where they're going to house it, how they're going to collect their data, not their data, but their forms to know what they're receiving. Um, you just kind of want to give them a heads up. This would be a great time. Just let them know that it hasn't officially occurred, but this is coming down the pipe. And I just wanted to let you know this is the information that's coming and that it has to be somebody that's representative of that site there on the day that you actually transfer the information. Um, so this still has to be turned in to your I'm sorry, to your TA, um, letting them know the projected equipment that's going to be transferred. And so that's also turned into us because we're going to then follow up with the TA to find out did it actually occur as they had outlined on their closeout form. And if so, we need the final copy that has the representative from that site that has signed off. Even if the equipment is going to be transferred due to the fact that it's not going to have a new 21st century grant, but it's going to offer a, a out of school time program. And so this is your documentation to support that is leaving from a 21st century hands to another after school program. And you still have that information listed to give to them. So keep that in mind. Try not to do a whole lot of, I guess I want to say, like scratching through and writing things in there because it's maybe easier to do of that sort. Please try to use the form as it is written and put in the information as needed. Are there any questions regarding this, the transfer? So regardless if even if you didn't purchase any equipment using Cohort 16 funds, you still complete this form and you just indicate as such on the form. Now, a question that did come up was, well, what about non-consumable items, such as, what if you bought some library books or some STEM kits or some ACT books, and you're not going to have an after-school program. You're not going to have a 21st century. You didn't get awarded a 21st century grant, then you would make sure it follows the next step as you would equipment. So if that is the case, then you checked and saw that there wasn't another 21st century site in your district. Then you then say, is this school a Title I school? If it is, then you just transfer it to right there. We're not asking for that information to be documented on our forms, but we're asking you to do your due diligence as good stewards of the funds to make sure you still follow that process, and you can create your own way of documenting, letting them know, hey, I'm giving you 5 STEM kits, you've documented it out, you had it typed out or something, and then they get a copy of that to know that they're receiving it. But you just know that if you are an LEA or a CBO, you cannot just keep the um, purchases that you've made, even if it's not equipment, to be housed at your place of business or to be housed at the office or central office. It has to go to those distinctive areas as outlined for equipment as well. But that isn't something that you turn in to us. We keep up with the equipment, the inventory for that, but you should have a process for non-consumable products that have been purchased with federal funds. Okay. All right. Any questions concerning the actual um, equipment inventory form? If you notice, we do have a couple of new areas on here, but one of them being good and not good. Right here in this very small print, we are the information that addresses in the narrative concerning um, inventory process, your equipment disposal process, and your loss of prevention process. We're not going to reinvent that. You have already done that. That has been submitted to your state assigned person, and so once it is approved, just keep a copy of it and have it ready to show to your TA because it is supposed to be tagged or stapled or attached to the equipment inventory. And so this is showing any auditor that you have done your due diligence when it came to the equipment that was purchased with federal funds. And so that's part of the process. Just remember that when the TA gets this equipment form before they come out for a site visit, they're going to pick 3 pieces of equipment for every site because every site must have this form completed for every year of the grant, even if you didn't purchase anything. I would just say no purchases made for 2023, 2024. That's fine. You just want to have documentation to support, and you want your TA to sign off that you've notified them that that you did not make any additional purchases or you didn't make any purchases that year, but maybe you did make purchases for 2022, 2023. And so you would indicate that as such on here. Make sure to don't just make a bunch of copies and not put the page numbers at the top. That's real important so that we don't lose the pages and whatnot. But that's the only thing I could really think of that would, you would need to know. And of course, it's not going to be signed off by your TA right here until the day of because they will pre-select without your knowledge of what areas or what pieces of equipment is going to be viewed, and then they will ask you to pull it. And that is purposely done. It has to be unannounced so that we can make sure that your inventory has been done correctly. Any questions about the equipment inventory form? Okay. And I want to say this form right here um, was given for your benefit, but this is actually completed by your assigned TA. This is just a synopsis or a checklist of everything that is expected for the closeout process. Um, Everything is sitting right here that we just discussed. The only thing that we would need to discuss, and I'm so glad I see this gray area. Make sure you all that any of your purchases that you've made, the TA is also going to ask to look for the paid purchase orders or the invoices to show that it was paid. So make sure that you have that attached with it when you have your inventory form. And that's on the form, and I did speak on that during the recording, but I'm just thinking of it now. Just a reminder, compliance monitoring is only addressed if you needed to have had some additional compliance monitoring done in year 3 because year 2 was when all compliance monitoring was done. And if that was the case, then you will indicate whether or not you've completed it. If it wasn't and you didn't complete it, then you need to identify when you plan on completing it, and if it's not applicable because you didn't have to turn in any additional compliance monitoring, then it will be NA, and then it will be signed off by you as the program director, and then also the TA or LSDE specialist, depending upon who's out there, will sign off on it. Are there any questions about any of this information? Okay. And last but not least, you should have received information regarding when everything was to be turned in and to whom. It's listed here on the calendar. We really are trying our best to stick to this date because we know that staff shifts and changes happen after school has ended, and we want to make sure we get our closeout done in a timely manner so that if we have any issues, we can address it before the grant actually does close itself out. So just keep that in mind. If there's something that comes up, we do understand. Just reach out to us, whether it be with your TA for a site visit or something going on where you cannot get your narrative emailed in a timely manner because something has come up, then just notify your ALSDE, especially so that we can document it. But for the most part, we really are going to do our best to stick to the dates that have been provided. Okay. I guess you guys really got the recording. I mean, nobody's asked any questions. So hopefully the recording was self-explanatory and you could go back and review and listen to a little bit of it to help you get through the process of it. Hopefully it won't be too hard, but it is one of those things where it's like the airline wheels are coming down. We're coming down for landing, y'all, for cohort 16.
And the only thing we send to our ALSDE is the narrative. Everything else goes to our TA, correct?
Correct. You're absolutely correct. And Winfield City was my first group to get their narrative in today. So, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, let's see. Erica, did you have anything that you wanted to add to it before we sign off? I do know this was recorded, so if you guys want to go back and re-listen to any questions, you're welcome to.
We will send out the recording on Friday with my Friday email. I can think of it right now.
Okay. Well, that being said, you all have a great rest of the afternoon, and we'll see you next time. Bye.